Continuing with how to improve the UX, let us look at how do we improve the navigation. So here again we have defined HTML, nav.html. It's a very standard HTML as we can see to start with. And in the body we have put in a lot of links. So we have home, then we have courses, and within courses we want to give options like view course, add new course, modify course, delete course. And same we want to do in students. So within students we want to give an option of view students, add new student, modify student, delete student, and then log out. So these are the kind of options we want it to have. And when we now run this HTML, so how would this look like? Let us see. So when we run this HTML, this is how we get. So we get home, then we get courses, we get students, and we get logout. And then to the right of courses, we get our four options: view courses, add new course, modify course, delete course. And to the right of students, we are getting view students, add new student, modify student, and delete student. Now suppose we want to improve the look and feel of it. So let's see how we can do it so it becomes very, very user friendly. So this was our navigation.nav.html that we had created. And now we have defined a CSS and we've just named it as CSS underscore nav.css. And in this we have defined an element called nav1 which will help us in our navigation. So this is a CSS which has been defined and there is a lot of definition in it. Let us see how do we implement this CSS on our HTML. So that is the focus that we want to focus on. So exactly the same way we've created a nav1.html, and the first thing we would do is in the head we would put the definition of the CSS. So link rel is equal to style sheet and href is equal to css underscore nav.css. So this is a relative path, and because nothing else is specified, so this file css underscore nav.css should be in the same directory as nav1.html. Second, let's see what do we do to the body part of it. So the first thing we have added here is div id is equal to nav1. So div is an HTML construct which stands for division or section. So it creates a section in the HTML code, and the purpose of the div is so that we can apply different style sheets to it. So we have created this section, and this section will inherit its properties from nav1. Remember in the CSS we had declared nav1. So we had declared nav1. So that is what we are saying here, that in this div the ID is nav1 and it will inherit the style sheet from nav1. The second change we are making is in this li we are saying class is equal to active. So what does class equal to active mean? Class is equal to active means that this node or this li is active. So imagine we are going through a menu and this is the one that we are on right now. So this is the active one. The third we are saying to this li, we are saying class is equal to dropdown. So dropdown is a very specific navigation class which comes predefined, and dropdown means that in this menu or in this navigation when I come here there will be a dropdown. So it's like a dropdown which will open up, and then the content of the dropdown is put in this class called dropdown content. So these are very, very standard definitions. So dropdown and dropdown content are standard definitions that we put here. So all that we wanted to show. So within courses, what do we want to show? So when we come to courses, a dropdown should open up, and within the dropdown we will see all the four options. And this, because we have styled it differently, has come within its own div. So these are the changes we have made here. Let's look at the next set of changes. Similarly for students, we had to show the same way. So identically to what we did to courses, we made the li class dropdown and then created this div class dropdown content and enclosed all those that we wanted to show in the dropdown in that div. So that's the other change we have made. Any other change? Yes, we have made one final change, which is this change here that we have. And what is this change here? So here we are saying li style is equal to float colon right. What does this mean? That this li that we have here will float to the right. So this will come to the extreme right. So typically, like we see on our screens, the logout comes to the extreme right. So when we say style is equal to float colon right, it will float to the right of the screen. So in that navigation bar, it will come to the right of it. Let us now see how this looks like. So this was the HTML we started with, which was nav.html. And now let us go to nav1.html. And wow, this looks much better. So first thing we notice is that home has a different color from courses, students and logout. Why? Because we had defined home to be active. So home has taken the active color. Let's come to courses, and the moment we come to courses, we get the drop down. So these were the 4 links we had defined in the drop down. So we get the 4 drop downs, and now when we put our cursor, hover our cursor on it, it clearly indicates what we want to do. Similarly, what do we get our students? Students we get as a drop down, and we get our 4 options that we have defined there. So now this looks so much more neat and user friendly, and we had put on logout that it will float to the right. So which is why logout is now to the extreme right. So applying the CSS has just improved that navigation. You can feel that. So this is where we started from, and by just applying that CSS, we have been able to achieve this kind of an output.